Hey, it's James Blake from InsaneMarathon.com. I have 5 questions you need to ask yourself before you pick your first marathon. The first question is, where do you live? Why is that important? Because you want to stay in your time zone for your first marathon. Sleep and travel are very important, and you don't want to make your first marathon any more difficult than it needs to be. So if you live like I do in Florida, I would try to find a Florida marathon. If I couldn't stay in Florida, I would stay in my time zone, maybe Georgia. Even if you had to travel to New York, you could go up to New York. But I wouldn't even recommend traveling to the Central Time Zone for your first marathon. I'd want to stay local in your time zone for your first marathon. Travel and sleep are way too important to get screwed up on your first marathon. So save a fun travel marathon for a marathon 2, 3, 4. But your first one, stay local. The second question you need to ask yourself is, where do you run? I run in Florida, sea level. I don't want to run my first marathon in Atlanta, Georgia with hills. So you got to keep in mind, where do you live? Now, do you run on hills? Do you run on trails? Do you run on the road? Do you run on the treadmill? Those are all very important questions to think about before you sign up for your first marathon. If you run, like I do, on flat sea level, you don't want to go to Colorado and run your first marathon. I sadly know people that have done this, and it doesn't end up working out as well as they would have hoped. The third question you need to ask yourself is, what time do you run? I like to run my long runs in the morning. So obviously a morning marathon works best for me. Some people run their long runs at night. Now there's not too many evening marathons, but there are a few. And you can find those later on in the video. I'll tell you a good place to look for marathons. But like the Las Vegas Marathon is run in the evening. So if you were an evening runner maybe and you lived in the Pacific time zone, you'd want to run the Las Vegas Marathon just because it's an evening marathon. One of the other questions here, question number 4 to ask yourself is, what do you fuel with? When I'm out there running, I run with water. And I used to run with Gatorade, so Gatorade and water were my 2 most important fueling. Now I run with Honey Stinger gels, and I carry those on me. But if it's your first marathon, you want to stick with what you've been training with. Sometimes you'll find a marathon that you'll go to and they're fueling you with something you're not used to. Like maybe you train with Gatorade and they're using Powerade, or they're using the Ironman fueling liquid, which I don't train with. I wouldn't want to try that on the course for my first marathon. So take a look. You can always go on to the website, and normally they'll show you in the course details what they're fueling with at the marathon, and you can take a look at it. If it sounds like something that you're not familiar with, you might want to look for a different marathon. And the last question that I like to ask myself is running with a group important to you? Do you run all of your long runs with the group? If you do, you're going to probably want to find a marathon that has a pace team. Not all marathons have a pace team. So go on to the marathon's website, check to see if they have a pace team, email the race director and find out if there's a pace team available for the pace that you'd like to run your marathon. If that's a 3 hour and 45 or a 5 hour marathon, maybe they don't have a pace for your time. So look and find out if there's a pace team available for your speed, and that's another great question to ask. For a great guide on finding marathons all over the world, go to marathonguide.com, and you can click on United States, International, Canada, sort by month, and you can find a marathon at that time. One of the other things I like to say is, when do you like to train? In Florida, I've found out personally, this is a bonus one for you. The fall marathons that I used to train for up in Chicago, when you're training for a fall marathon in Florida, you're training in really, really hot weather. So if you're like me and you live in Florida, maybe a winter or spring marathon will be more fun. Well, you'll be able to get through the training better than a fall marathon, because you're going to be, the bulk of what's going to get you to that finish line is going to be your training, and you don't want to be training for your first marathon in 100-degree temperatures. So, or the other way around, if you live in Alaska, you don't want to train on the treadmill for your whole entire marathon training program. So keep that stuff in mind. If you have any other questions, leave a comment below or shoot me an email, jblake@insanemarathon.com. You can also visit my website for more information at insanemarathon.com. Find me on Twitter @JimBlake or Instagram @InsaneMarathon. Have a great day, everybody. If you need anything else, let me know. Thanks.